How am I going to start this? We'll start by saying, so we want to migrate a physical machine into the virtual layer onto our server. How do we go about doing that? Well, VMware makes a dedicated piece of software called VMware's vCenter Converter Standalone. It's a single agent application you can install on the physical host. You can actually install it on a different host within the network, as long as the application can see the source or the physical machine that you want to virtualize and the destination, which is in this case our server or wherever you're trying to take that VM into. Essentially go to vmware.com or find your converter here. It'll probably ask you to log in again, which is fine. We've created our My VMware account in a previous video. So we've got the current version is 6.4.0 and we go into downloads and there it is. We just click download now. Here's where it asks us to log in. Of course, go through and read your terms of service and then hit accept if you agree to them. Then you've got your downloads, which it looks like I've already downloaded this before because I have. So we'll open our downloads. There we are. So you go through the installation wizard, check all the things that they want you to check. It's pretty simple. I do not want to join the VMware Customer Experience Improvement Program. You do you. So now we're just going to go through and install our VMware vCenter Converter application, standalone application, eventually. And now we can go run converter. All right, so for this, you're going to need a couple of things. You're going to need IP address to your ESXi host, which we stood up in a previous video. You're going to need the login information for that host, for the ESXi host. Let's just go through it. So we've got a couple options here, convert machine or configure machine. This is kind of cool. So if we go into convert machine, we're going to do powered on this local machine in the dropdown. Hit next. Our destination system, we have an option between VMware infrastructure virtual machine, which is our standalone server over here, or VMware workstation or other VMware virtual machine. VMware workstation it's a layer 2 hypervisor, kind of like VirtualBox is. You've got your underlying operating system like Windows in this case. VMware workstation or VirtualBox or Hyper-V lives on top of that layer 1 bare metal application. So we're not doing that today. We're actually going to go to VMware infrastructure. We're going to have to put our server IP address, which it pre-populated that. That's interesting to see. And our login credentials. You'll get a certificate warning, most likely. Just click ignore. And if you've done everything right to this point, you'll see your list of virtual machines that are on your ESXi host. You can name your machine whatever you want. It automatically populates the name of the computer that you're virtualizing as the name of the virtual machine here. So we hit next. You can decide which data store you want to put this on. I want to put it on data store 1. This is where it can get kind of complicated. On my physical machine, I've got a 500 gig SSD as the primary drive on this machine. This is where you're going to go in and decide how big you want your footprint to be on the ESXi server. So for example, we're not going to pick this drive because this is our Veeam backup drive. I've got a local target for Veeam. We can see we've got our C drive, so our primary drive here. The entirety of the drive is 465 gigs, right? That's the whole disk. So with this drop down here on our C drive, we can click minimum size, so it's 200 gigs that's currently being used within the existing physical desktop. We could also go here to type in size in gigabytes. So if I wanted to populate 250 gigs, that's where I would do it. So only 200 gigs is in use, but if I want to give myself a little bit of breathing room, which I do, I'm going to just click 250 or 300 or 500 or a terabyte or whatever is working for you. We can go down to devices. We can change how much virtual CPU and virtual RAM we allocate to this virtual machine. We're going to bring it down to 4 gigs. We have 1 socket and we'll bring this down to 2 cores. Networks, we just want the 1 network adapter. We can have all these services going. We can stop the services before we make the changes or propagate anything over there. But it looks like this is kind of where we want to be. Go to next. This last page gives us a summary of what we're looking at here. We could go through and install VMware tools at the time of migration. We're not going to do that today. Maybe I'll do that in a future video where we can talk about the VMware tools, what they are and how they're useful. But we're just going to click finish, and here we go. Now we can see that this task is currently running. It says estimated time remaining is 1 hour and 3 minutes. It's probably actually going to be close to double that. We're going to leave this and we'll come back when this is completed and see how long it actually took. So let's go do that now. Are we still here? Shit.
2 hours later.
And we're back. Like I said, it's probably going to take about 2 hours. It was almost 2 hours on the dot. How do I know? Is because I did this before. If we go to log into our ESXi host, we can now see that we've got an extra virtual machine called Prime. It's a Windows 10 machine, 250 gigabytes, 2 CPU, 4 gigs of RAM. All the things are set up just the way that we put it to be set up. Before we power this on, we're gonna go in and power off the physical machine that we migrated from, our source machine. So in order to reduce the possibility of an IP conflict, or for example, this machine, I've got Hyper-V running with a couple of VMs running on the physical desktop. I want to power down that source desktop before I power up the VM to make sure all of my settings and everything are correct, everything migrated over as if it were still our source desktop. We're going to go ahead and do that now, and let's see what happens.
Eventually.
So let's get into our ESXi. We're gonna turn on our VM desktop that we just moved over, see what happens. You know what, before I do that, actually, that's right, because I'm running Hyper-V on here and I've got a couple of nodes that are running on that as well, I wanna make sure they have enough CPU and RAM. So now let's see what happens. I haven't powered this one on yet. I haven't powered on a VM that's running Hyper-V within the VM. So it's like I'm gonna have virtual machine inception if it boots. Look at that. Ooh. Okay. So the pin wasn't working. What about my Hyper-V manager? So the VMs that were running on Hyper-V did not transfer over or with the physical host. That's interesting to know. Great, we're able to P2V, physical to virtual, get rid of our physical host and virtualize it, or our physical desktop, virtualize it to a VM in our ESXi stack. So if we have a physical desktop that's running some services, we may be able to pull that over into our virtual environment and save on energy, save on physical footprints of devices throughout the building. Again, this is VMware at home. If you have a desktop that is a file server, there's definitely a possibility of virtualizing that as well. We're going to go into that a little bit deeper in a future episode. Make sure you subscribe to the channel to see that as well. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What did I miss? What additional do you need to know about a P2V environment? Also stay tuned for future videos about V2V. Hit that like button if you learned anything today. And of course, thanks for watching.